Okay? Sorry. So the next thing I want to talk about are presidential signing statements, the kind that are somewhat controversial. Now, in this case, again, we're talking about Phil's Corn Law being passed. And what presidents sometimes use signing statements to do is to define some vague term in the law. Like, so oftentimes when Congress passes a law, they'll write it in relatively vague terms and allow whichever department is going to carry out the law to fill in the details. And we'll talk about that more when we talk about the bureaucracy. So let me give you a fake example of what I'm talking about. Suppose Congress goes ahead and they pass Phil's Corn Law, right? And in it, it says that Phil's Corn Law regulates the sale of corn, and that's all they say. And then they talk about the different provisions of regulating corn. Now, in the law, it never actually defines what the word corn is. It just states that corn is to be regulated. But it doesn't mention popcorn in it. It just says corn. Now, in this example, we're going to assume for the moment that Congress had no intentions whatsoever of regulating popcorn. They were just concerned with corn. Phil's Corn Law was about corn. It wasn't about popcorn. But imagine, too, that the president thinks that it's a good idea to regulate popcorn as well. Right? So this is what the president would do in a signing statement. It would say, whenever you read the word corn should be interpreted to include popcorn as well. Okay, so what happens? And that's a signing statement. He gets a bill, he signs it, he takes the presidential signing statement, he says that the word corn also includes the word popcorn. He gives the bill to the Department of Agriculture, and they go, oh, look, there's all these laws that go ahead and regulate corn. I guess we're going to go ahead and regulate corn. And then we have this law about corn. Then they take the signing statement and they go, oh, wait. Oh, you guys, hold on one sec before you go regulating corn. The president says that also includes popcorn. That's how it works. If there's a word that's like vague in the law, what the president will do is oftentimes use the vague language to interpret it in a way that goes ahead and gets and does something that the president wants to do rather than something Congress wants to do. Now, the reason that we call this somewhat controversial is because, well, the president is doing something different than what Congress intended. So that's the first problem, because again, the president's just supposed to carry out the law. But the second part, which is a little bit more important, is that, or not even a little bit, it's more important, is that Congress has the ability to respond. Well, what do I mean by that? What I mean is that if Congress goes ahead and let's say they do some oversight hearings, and they find out in the course of talking to different administration officials that they're also regulating popcorn. Then they see the presidential signing statement. They're like, what's up with this? We didn't want to regulate popcorn. We just wanted to regulate corn. What they can do is go ahead and somebody's going to propose to amend the law, to change the law. And they're going to vote on it again, Phil's Corn Law, but this time they're going to add something. And it's going to say the word corn does not refer to popcorn. Popcorn is not included as part of this bill. And they pass that and add it to the bill, and they give it to the president. Right? Now the president can't do anything. Now it's clear that popcorn is not included. So Congress can go ahead and respond. And that's why we call it somewhat controversial. Once again, the president is going ahead and he's interpreting the law in a way that's different than what Congress intended. But Congress has the capacity to respond. Well, the next set of signing statements that I want to talk about are what are called very controversial signing statements. And in this case, if you go back to my earlier example about a line item veto, let me see if I can find the thing that allows me to go ahead and do this. Right, so remember we talked about before, you've got Phil's Corn Law, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 parts of Phil's Corn Law, right? What presidents do in these very controversial signing statements is what they'll do is they get the bill, and they look at it, and they sign the bill into law. But then they issue a presidential signing statement. And in the signing statement, what they tell the executive branch is, by the way, that part of the law, that's unconstitutional. We want you to ignore it. And they essentially go ahead, and because they don't really have the authority to go ahead and veto things, they can't just veto one part of the bill. In essence, what they do is they tell the executive branch, this is some high-tech stuff, ain't it? Ignore that. Get rid of it. Just pretend like it doesn't exist. Now, what he's doing is he's basically modifying the law. He's changing the law. He's going ahead and saying, I'm going to sign this whole thing into law, but I'm going to tell the executive branch, ignore this part because it's unconstitutional. Right? Now here's the thing. Presidents don't have that authority. They simply don't have that authority. A president can either go ahead and sign a bill into law and sign the whole thing and say, okay, it's all a law, or the president can veto the whole thing. Because if the president doesn't like that one provision in the law, what the president can do is he can go ahead and say, you know what? Okay, these are the 4 provisions. Sorry, they didn't look. That one is unconstitutional. I'm going to veto the whole thing. I'm going to veto the entire thing, and I'm going to send it back to you. Or the president can threaten to do it and say, hey, look, if you pass it with that provision in it, I'm going to veto it. But they can't just go ahead and tell they're not supposed to just tell the executive branch, ignore that part of the provision of the law. Just completely ignore it like it doesn't exist because I've determined that it's unconstitutional. That's not what the veto power was given to the president for. When presidents use veto power like that, essentially what they're doing is they're taking for themselves something that's unconstitutional. They're giving themselves essentially an absolute line item veto. Well, why do I say that? Well, first, the reason I say that it's absolute is, again, let's say the president goes ahead, he signs this bill into law and says, by the way, ignore that one because I think it's unconstitutional. And that's what he tells the executive branch. Ignore that completely. Then, what can Congress do? They can amend there's no need to amend the law. It's already in the law that they passed, right? It's already in the law that they passed. There's nothing they can do. There's one thing they can do. They can impeach the president, and then throw him out of office. But Congress doesn't usually do stuff like that. So what's happened is, this is something that's happened more lately than it used to in the past. It didn't used to happen nearly this much, and it started happening a lot. Now, in particular, if this was like a graph, I don't think I have a pencil. I don't think I can draw. Here, let's see if I can draw something on here. No, I don't think I can draw. Oh, maybe I can. Here we go. Let me clear this. If you were to graph from the time of Reagan to now, how often presidents use presidential signing statements, it would have gone like this. Well, here, let me clear that and I'll put it up in the sky. Let me get out of the way. Starting from Reagan here, let's say that's Reagan, and then that's Bush, and that's Clinton, that's President Bush, and then this is President Obama. In terms of using these kind of very controversial signing statements, it kind of went like this. Boom, 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 wah. And President Obama hasn't, so they've gone back down. They haven't used them quite as much, and so they're back down here, right? But one of the things so the point here, with my very cool drawing in the sky here, is that during the Bush administration, President Bush used these kind of very controversial signing statements a lot. And one of the things that we know from the study of American politics and of presidential power is that once a president takes power, like using signing statements like this, it's very hard to stop other presidents from doing it. Now, there's a clip on the lecture notes, and you can go ahead and watch it, where it's a clip of President Obama responding to a question about presidential signing statements during the 2008 election. Somebody asks him, "Do you know? Will you use presidential signing statements to get your way?" And he takes about an eighth of a second. He goes, no. And then he goes ahead and he explains. And then people are like applauding, like, yay, what the hell is a presidential signing statement? They had no idea, but they just applauded anyways because that's what you do at a rally. So President Obama, sensing that nobody, maybe 3 people in the entire place, understood what a signing statement was, he went ahead and he explained what a signing statement was and explained how President Bush was using these signing statements to go ahead and basically modify the law and how that was wrong, and he taught constitutional law and blah, 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 blah. Said he wouldn't do signing statements. His first signing statement was in May of 2009, so about, a few months after he took office. Now, it wasn't one of these very controversial types, but it was one of the somewhat controversial types, and this is what presidents have been doing. So the reason that I talk about presidential signing statements is because, like I say, President Bush used them a lot as he tried to prosecute the war on terrorism, and that was the explanation. But again, once presidents grab a certain kind of power, it's very hard to get it back from them. And so I think presidential signing statements might become a bigger issue in the years to come. And so I make a point of telling all my classes about presidential signing statements so that they know to be on the alert. So if all of a sudden you start seeing discussions about presidential signing statements, pay attention, because what it means is that other presidents have started to use them. And it's a dangerous thing. And this isn't about President Bush or President Obama. This is about our political system. And in our political system, no one branch is supposed to have total power. The problem with these very controversial signing statements is that other than impeaching a president and throwing him out of office, Congress can't really respond. They can't do anything. They can't amend a law. They can't do anything. And that's dangerous. We should never have a president be able to act where there's no possible way, other than removing him from office, no possible way for Congress to respond. That's not the system that the framers envisioned. That's not the system that will keep American democracy solid. End of speech. And next we'll go on to the last part of this lecture, the limits of presidential power, and that will be Presidency 08.